spending a lot of money to create false narratives, they placed the blame on Eisenhower. And supposedly in 1954, actually, Eisenhower ordered an invasion on Dulce underground base to take out the Greys. So, he wanted to win the war, and we didn't win the war. So, that's just, that enough is a lot to wrap our heads around. And where's the proof of that? Well, geoengineering, look at all the indoctrination. If you look around, we definitely have not been the land of the free. He really explained in his final speech this warning about the military-industrial complex, which includes secret space programs. And so with the help of Al Thor, to counteract this unconditional surrender agreement, he set up the Earth Alliance, the White Hats, and the positive military units that survive today. So my book describes my agreements with the Eisenhower administration and my guidance during that time from a galactic level, and that the Guardians wanted to bring me in to incarnate into this family to help blow the lid off, along with a lot of many other advanced souls like yourself and others that are, holding platforms that are open to these, greater conversations that each carry a specific mission. Every single human does, but they've just sort of forgotten. So we're more the activators and reminders of you got to dig deeper, guys. This isn't a trustworthy system. And there's many components to it all that it doesn't even matter if we all see things the same way. As long as we're pit against each other and we're in this divide and conquer program, we're not going to get anywhere.
But before we get started, folks, make sure you hit the pause button. Okay, go down below. There's a Rumble link. Go over to Rumble and follow us over there. QFS1776.com is, without question, the holy grail of what's to come. Okay, T-shirts. You got to get yourself decorated. This way people will ask you, what is XRP? What is the quantum financial system? What is this? What is that? And you send them where? To QFS1776.com, where they need to immerse themselves, because we're going to burn down this system down to the ground. And out of the ashes will rise the phoenix. There'll be nothing to go back to. Believe me when I tell you that. Also, our Telegram groups down below. If you want to learn what's coming and you're sort of a little scared, I understand. Believe me, I was there too at one point. And if you need more than $10,000 worth of XRP or $1 million worth of XRP, you come see me. Send me an email at QFS1776@gmail, and we'll get you as much as you want. Gold and silver. Welcome to CarminesGold.com. Don't waste not even a second looking. Cheaper prices just don't exist. How important is it for you to own gold and silver right now? What does it mean to me personally? There's an economy that's about to crash beyond what words can explain. In 5 words, I'm going to educate you on gold and silver. Are you ready? You need to own some. Simple.
Hi, Elisa V here. Did you know that medical bills are the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States, accounting for 66.5% of bankruptcies? In fact, in 2022, 17% of adults with healthcare debt either declared bankruptcy or lost their homes due to it. We can all agree that the healthcare system is broken. Well, there is an alternative that I want to tell you about. It is Impact Health Sharing, which Yahoo News is calling the disruptor in the $4.6 trillion healthcare system. With Impact Health Sharing, you can choose the doctors, clinics, and naturopaths that you want with less restrictive guidelines. Medical bills are reduced to their fair market value, and premiums are 30 to 72% cheaper than competitors. Plus, Impact Health incentivizes healthy habits like supplements, gym visits, and therapy. Call 844-275-1056 and use the code MELCARMINE for a free quote today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mel Carmine Show. I'm your guest host, Elisa V., better known as the Queen of High Vibe from my High Vibe show. And I'm so happy to have you here today. I'm loving being here and meeting so many of you and just enjoying this opportunity to bring you some amazing guests and some wonderful conversations. Please like, share, and of course, subscribe so that we can continue to bring you great stuff. I'd also encourage you to take a look at the description box below, because there's a lot of information there about the Quantum Summit too. And tickets are going very fast, so be sure to get yours to this amazing event, which is happening March 8th and 9th. It's happening in Cape Canaveral. I will be one of your co-MCs, and this promises to bring together some of the most influential minds and individuals that are shaping the future of science, health, and governance. We also want to let you know that seating is limited to 917 attendees, and we are going to stop selling tickets 10 days before the event. So I definitely urge you to move quickly and get on board to attend the Quantum Summit too. You can also visit quantumsummit1776.com to get more information and get your tickets. Now, without further delay, let's begin today. I'm so thrilled to introduce our guest today, Laura Eisenhower. Laura is a master astrologer. For those of you who have not had the privilege of seeing her on her own podcast or on the many podcasts to which she has graced. And she is also great-granddaughter to 5-star General and 34th President Dwight D. Eisenhower. She has become such an amazing force in the spiritual community, featured on many podcasts, and her experiences are just incredible when it comes to her knowledge and her ability to tap into what's going on spiritually on this earth. Welcome, Laura.
Hey, Elisa. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm not sure if many people realize, but you are also a published author. You have a book that was that's out there called Awakening the Truth Frequency into the Unified Field. And I do hope we can get into some of the amazing things that are in this book, because your experiences, your knowledge, and just your overall general just way of explaining where we're going, you know, here on Earth and with ascension and so many other important aspects of our lives. You're just such an expert. So where do we begin? Where do we begin? I want to ask you a question. I want the audience to know a bit about you and the historical perspective that you bring from your research and your very unique background experience when it comes to your great-grandfather's administration and the galactics.
So, to go into all that?
Yeah, let's just get into
Oh
it.
my gosh. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, thinking about just the office of presidency, the governments, and their relations with extraterrestrials is just something that is quite the rabbit hole to go down. There's so much information that is out there, and I've found out a lot more than what you would find on the internet. If anybody were to look up Eisenhower and ETs, they probably would run into the 1954 Greada Treaty. And from what I've discovered, he actually didn't sign that treaty. It was MJ-12. He didn't have any authority to negotiate with extraterrestrial races, because in 1952 under Truman there was an unconditional surrender agreement. When the UFOs flew over the Capitol in 1952 out of Antarctica, after the failed mission of Admiral Byrd,
Yes,
attempted to go to that base, which failed, and I believe that was around 1947, same year that Project Paperclip and Nazi scientists and particular experts in these fields of medicine, Mengele sciences, came over to the United States. In 1952, this was the actual surrender. So when the UFOs
let me stop you for 1 minute for any of our listeners who have not really gone down the rabbit hole yet of the galactics and this, sometimes this could seem so like we take for granted, and especially you take for granted when we've done research and we understand a lot of the behind the scenes history that's gone on. But basically what we're saying is that, unbeknownst to a lot of people and a lot of the public, there was a lot that was going on behind the scenes starting during the Second World War, where it came to human interaction with galactics and many of them that were in communication or in contact, let's say, with the Nazis, and some of those evil forces were also not really here to necessarily help humanity in a positive way. And that's where, we have a lot of the, anybody who has done research, like you said, on your great-grandfather, has found that there's some very negative things that were said about his involvement. And what you're saying is, with further research and understanding, Dwight D. Eisenhower was not one of the ones to sort of sell out humanity, if you will, to the negative galactics. Do I have that right for anybody who's...
Yeah. Yep. So when I was running into that information, I wanted to share it and bring it out because we need to know, even if I don't like what I'm hearing. But the synchronicities in my life and the people that I've met and insiders, I guess you could call them, that would know, helped me to understand what really took place. Yeah, so there's a lot in my book about all of this, all the information that I've heard along the way about the possibility of, a treaty being signed in 1954 under Eisenhower, just to, create a comparison with the more recent information coming from Dan Cooper, who's the senior advisor to the Earth Alliance. And he said that MJ12 did this behind his back. Elena Danaan has said that. I'm not really in touch with her, and I'm not necessarily on board with a lot of different things when it comes to what we're hearing. Not to discredit anybody, it's just where I am very discerning and on the fence when it comes to certain things. But when I look at the research coming from different individuals that all say the same thing, including Alex Collier, who's a contactee of the Andromeda Council, they all say that, Eisenhower didn't sign the treaty. He didn't have the authority to sign the treaty. And what we don't know about is that this unconditional surrender agreement took place under Truman, that all of Congress signed, and basically it divested all the authority of ET relations to MJ12 and these three-letter organizations. So because of Project Paperclip, because of the Nazi propaganda ministry spending a lot of money to create false narratives, they placed the blame on Eisenhower. And supposedly in 1954, actually, Eisenhower ordered an invasion on Dulce underground base to take out the Greys. So, he wanted to win the war, and we didn't win the war. So, that's just, that enough is a lot to wrap our heads around. And where's the proof of that? Well, geoengineering, look at all the indoctrination, look at the pandemic, look at, our skies being sprayed. If you look around, we definitely have not been the land of the free, maybe the home of the brave in terms of people bringing out this deeper, truth and information that we can all just sort out. We can get to the bottom of things. And he really explained in his final speech this warning about the military industrial complex, which includes secret space programs. And so with the help of Val Thor, to counteract this unconditional surrender agreement, he set up the Earth Alliance, the White Hats, and the positive military units that survive today.
Eisenhower did.
Eisenhower did. So I explained it all in my book. So they want to blame the ones that are the good guys and make them look evil. That's why we see a lot of propaganda that, Hitler was actually good and the Nazis had a good plan. We went after the wrong enemy. And in a lot of ways, we did and we didn't. Like there was a lot more to all of this. Yeah. Many deeper layers. And he could only really counteract this by getting to those deeper layers, dealing with the bigger galactic war by setting up these positive military units in the face of this unconditional surrender agreement, because the deals began in the 30s under Roosevelt's administration.
Can you tell a little bit more about these deals? So we're talking about, there's negative forces, there's positive forces. We didn't quite win the war. Eisenhower was trying to give warnings. He was setting up a lot of these positive military operations, so to speak. But what is this war really about? Because that becomes very spiritual and very much about humanity and our history, and then, hopefully our future, right? So what is this war that we're talking about?
Well, it's just service to self, service to others, negative alien agenda. That if you look at the 13 families, and the deep state and that connection, and the Anunnaki invasion, we're dealing with control agendas. The Black Suns, the Sons of Belial, the manipulation of the planetary grid network with reversal grid technology. And this goes way back. But so when you look at deals, you're just looking at, a humanity that's trying to understand something that's been impacting us for a really long time since the fall of Atlantis, going, back into, just when the root races were established here, over the course of evolution, different phases of our Earth experience, bringing in different root races, Lemuria, Holocaust, Nephilim Wars, Electric Wars, there's deep history that we're not hearing about in our schools. So, You know, when we hear the Genesis story, or we hear, you know, just like when the wars began, we're not looking at the bigger picture when it comes to the galactic. So exploded planets like Tiamat dropping down into this lower harmonic universe, then Maldek exploding, the rings of Saturn coming from that, and refugees and Anunnaki coming in. You know, we've been invaded a long time ago. So to keep, you know, an artificial timeline in place that is based in these reversal grid technologies that literally harvest and siphon our energy, meanwhile, our DNA is being compromised and we don't have access to the fullness of our DNA. We're like in a very limited expression. You know, we don't have the galactic memories to even argue, you know, with what we're learning in our history books and what we get, you know, in the school system. So we see the morphing of our history into something completely different. So it might still say in our history books we won the war, but it's steering it into and like other narratives. If they make it into the history books, who knows? I don't know how the school systems are going to change in regards to that. But we see indoctrination like in this next generation already about gender confusion and about things that they're introducing into our schools that are not what we got in our generation and generations before. So this morphing and sort of like war on consciousness and hidden weaponry coming through social engineering, indoctrination, medical tyranny, all the different levels that we see, you know, and just like the Hollywood industry and you know, Epstein's list, Diddy's list, and the deeper underbelly where, you know, we find out about satanic ritual abuse and MK Ultra. Yeah, that's the bigger war. That's the bigger war. So he had to address that bigger war, because as long as we're not addressing that, they're going to pit us against each other by funding war, both sides of war, and political parties. And so he was almost like the last president before, you know, we started to see the grooming and the just more government control over the leaders, you know, that are owned by these three-letter organizations. So he briefed Kennedy. Kennedy got assassinated, and that's just a whole other thing. And we've slowly seen like this warning, something that is like, yes, now we're dealing with this, and it's also a warning about, you know, this propaganda, the rewriting of history, that we have to be a knowledgeable and aware citizenry, and if we're going to be knowledgeable and aware, we're going to have to take it upon ourselves to dig really deep. So my book describes my agreements with the Eisenhower administration and my guidance during that time from a galactic level, and that the Guardians wanted to bring me in to incarnate into this family to help blow the lid off, along with a lot of many other advanced souls like yourself and others that are, you know, holding platforms that are open to these, you know, greater conversations that each carry a specific mission. Every single human does, but they've just sort of forgotten. So we're more the activators and reminders of like, you know, you got to dig deeper, guys. You know, this isn't a trustworthy system, and there's many components to it all, that it doesn't even matter if we all see things the same way, as long as we're pit against each other and we're in this divide and conquer program, we're not going to get anywhere. So it's vampiric, you know, the deals with the ETs that were more established before the Second World, or around the Second World War, had to do with, you know, abductions of humans in exchange for technology. Now, if you look it up on the internet, it's going to blame Eisenhower for that. In actual fact, he counteracted it, and it was MJ-12. So he lost control because there was 20 levels of top secret above the president, then 28 levels. So he had to have Val Thor help advise him so he could begin to set up these positive units to begin to turn all this around. And it's just like, so.
So
And I'm not biased.
tell everyone about Val Thor, just because you've thrown that name around. And of course, you and I know who this is, but maybe just very briefly, just let them know who.
Yeah. So Val Thor is a being from Venus and came in with the craft called Victor 1 with his team. And if you look it up, he put Val Thor in the Pentagon for 3 years on VIP status and began to work with him about, you know, like how to help humanity. Like they worked together with Nixon and him and anybody else that was on the side of, you know, the human race waking up. And
it's funny because they took Nixon down too, right?
Well, I mean, they vetoed, and like the shadow government, you know, didn't make it possible for this to become public, for the help of Val Thor to become public knowledge as far as what we've been up against. he advised the Eisenhower administration and warned the Eisenhower administration about the Greys and the Nordics. So we hear that first contact that the Nordics warned us about the Greys, and that they went for the Greys. They made a deal with the Greys and they turned down the Nordics, and that's actually not what Dan Cooper says. So I present it all in the book for the reader to discern, because I'm not here to push a narrative, right? I'm like, okay, I heard this, I heard that, it's all here. What do you guys make of it? And the reason I align mostly with Dan Cooper is because it makes sense. If there was this flyover, it makes sense that in 1952, there would have been an unconditional surrender agreement after Project Paperclip, Project Mockingbird, all these different MK Ultra projects, Montauk Project, all the different levels of secret space programs we don't hear about. We only hear about NASA. When you hear about it, this from the SSP whistleblowers, survivors, MK Ultra survivors, SRA survivors, people that, lived through this and know this firsthand, that's where I feel I get the bigger answers to these questions, and so how does that line up with what these particular individuals have said? Because Gerald Light and others, and that I mentioned in my book, talk about Eisenhower being at the meetings, but not necessarily signing the agreements. Then I hear from some people, those were forged, those were all planted. There's a lot of disinformation and a lot of plants. And then I meet Dan Cooper that takes it to a whole new level, saying that, there's layer upon layer upon layer, because this is what they don't want us to know. So we shouldn't fear that there was an unconditional surrender agreement. We just need to understand, what that means as far as, okay, they're not dropping bombs, even though there's always the threat of something like nuclear weapons and, Third World War. It's the war on consciousness. It's the slow grooming from generation to generation of hooking people into this globalist climate change wokeism that is taking us down a trajectory of more enslavement, more New World Order, more mandates, more medical tyranny, possible fake alien invasion, and all these different artificial engineered events to keep us from the growth periods and the initiations that the planetary alignments provide for us to begin to advance ourselves and see a much more beautiful future that we can manifest and create amongst each other. So we're all born with like dreams of what we want for our lives and what we want for the future. But if it gets hijacked, if we get infected by these narratives or these psyops and fear tactics and trigger events, we're just going to miss the mark, and we're just going to be shuffled over, there. And that's why there's censorship, because it's we, the people, that are going to overthrow the deep state. Now that there's a shift with this election, it's a lot more hopeful for, all of us to be able to do what we came here to do without, own nothing and be happy and be locked in your house perhaps again and take this and that into your body. But we have to hold this administration accountable. As positive as it might seem, we can't have somebody else save us. We can't expect that. We need to hold them accountable to, where we feel our boundaries coming up, and anything that might be introduced to us as a populace, and find more sovereignty amongst ourselves so that we can, stay on top of things and not just buy into whatever bait. I'm feeling good about things in this shift, but I'm never one to trust anything outside of myself. I think that's the ultimate lesson for humanity, is make sure that these governments are serving the people, and that the government structure is, which I feel is beginning to crumble. We're not just draining the swamp of DC, it's also City of London, it's also the Vatican, it's also the tentacles that have spread to every pillar of society, education, medical, religion, a lot that's hiding, behind the leadership in the world that is very dark, where pedophilia, human trafficking, and money laundering and drug traffic, it's just like on and on and on. So all that's coming to the surface to crumble, to purify, so that, the real system that's in alignment with cosmic and natural law can come into place. And let's just hope that we're seeing that in the world. But if we're not, let's make that happen amongst ourselves. We can do that. And so Val Thor, he kind of went rogue. He's from Venus. Some say he's Palladian. Some say there's so much different information out there. That's kind of why I just put it all down in my book. And the reason it makes sense, again, that we would have signed an unconditional surrender agreement and Eisenhower lost control is because the office of the presidency is not the deep state. They have deep state players, though, who have taken office. And that is the morphing and shifting that we've seen when we see people running that are on the Epstein list, are involved in, very, very, dark activities that, survivors are calling out, because they say, like Kathy O'Brien, they're saying it, like, I was abused by this particular president, like Ford or Clinton. Not just the Monica Lewinsky scandal. It's like there's way more
It's so
there.
much
And
deeper. Yeah. And
and it's
it's
very difficult. So I know this is probably like, whoa, almost too much for people to hear, but we got to dismantle it within ourselves, and not have a dependency bond, or put these people on pedestals, or think they're out for us. It's like, this is the ultimate lesson: to find more sovereignty, to disconnect from the false parents, the dysfunctional relationship that we have with society, recognizing it's no different than needing to divorce a narcissist or an abuser that charmed your way into marriage, right? That, and at the same time, we were born into it. We didn't really have a choice. Now we get to divorce it and cut the cords. And even though that's a dark and difficult process, not knowing what to trust or what to grab onto, that's your chance to fall back on yourself. Find that inner strength to know that you've got everything you could possibly need to manifest and co-create a much more beautiful future. But we're all going to need to come together. We need each other. If we fall for the divide and conquer, we're fragmented in these vampiric energies. That's all they want, because they want to feed on us. They are not the powers that be. We are. They stole the power in order to engineer these timelines that literally are duping us for their gain, and starving us from resources for their gain.
Absolutely. There's a quote I took from your book, which I think kind of says, very succinctly what you've been saying. We are contending with nothing short of a war on consciousness, trickery, life, false flags, and psychological operations are at an extreme to throw humanity off the trajectory of our divine potential, instead taking us into a new world order and that many cannot see, dealing with extreme censorship and low vibratory troll attacks. And that's essentially what you just said in the last sentence before I said that quote, was that they're feeding off of, people say, well, why? Well, why is this happening? Why did they want it? What is the end game? And it's really to feed off of this beautiful consciousness and love that we have, that we possess as humanity, and kind of steal, or like you said, it's very vampire like, steal this. And what's happened is, I couldn't agree more, that so much of the power that they took from us, we were tricked into voluntarily giving it. And now we're at a point where hopefully we see with this great awakening that between people like yourself, people that are out there sort of on the front lines, people that before you, like Alex Collier and some of these other people who went out and were not only put themselves in danger, right? Because at that point, the deep state people thought he was, potentially crazy, and these ideas are so nuts. And, but they went before to try to educate humanity into realizing that the power is all within us. And I agree with you. While I feel really good about this administration, and, I'm really happy about a lot of what seems to be being dismantled, around the world, we can't look for the savior. Like, we have to realize that we're in this shape we're in because if we all come together and we don't let them divide us, we are going to be able to have so much more strength and stand in unity. Just not even understanding the power we have. Like, one of the things that I'm so passionate about is just, understanding. You have to understand before you can actually practice, but understanding how we can control our own vibration, the energy that we're in, what we live in, how we send that out to the collective. And when we start taking more control, we start, it's not a coincidence that we feel better, our health is better, we are more creative, we're able to just give more and receive more. And I think that's what they've, if we want to really just bring it down to like a very low level, that's kind of what we're talking about here, how we need to stay in control of ourselves and protect our own thoughts and go to our gut and go to source and our higher self about all of these things. Would you say that kind of is kind of advice we need people to kind of understand, go within and embrace that power?
Absolutely. And so beautifully put. Yeah. And all these complexities that, I'm trying to describe, it really comes down to that, because there's a bombardment. We're dealing with a constant bombardment through our devices, through what we view in the news, I'm not just talking about mainstream, even what we would call alternative news.
Right.
There's just a lot of people just trying to find answers, and there's information overload. And you know, just like I'm right, you're wrong, and it doesn't have to be like that. We just need to just know the fundamental challenge, and see the solution is, you know, not something somebody else is going to provide. It's only something that we can find within ourselves. We win the war on consciousness within ourselves. To claim the victory over the war is to claim victory over our thoughts, our mind, our emotions, our reactions, what we allow into our system, with greater discernment and with boundaries to what might not be something we want to feed into or take on. I mean, the thing is, they use us to manifest what they want, because as long as we're engaged, we're enabling it.
Yeah.
While we're victimized and we're blaming something outside of ourselves constantly, you know, but we're moving into a time astrologically where Saturn in Aries is going to be conjunct Neptune in Aries. That's really when Aries, the ego identity, that's gone through a massive healing with Chiron in Aries and the North Node in Aries, which means that the growth period for humanity is really looking at identity wounds. Where have we been so wounded in that arena that we're just grabbing at labels and like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this political party, I'm this religion, I'm this pronoun. So there's a massive, like, you know, healing on that, to begin to not be so compartmentalized and leverage, you know, that those wounds and traumas, and not look for the outer solution, but to let it be an opportunity to upgrade us into the healing that connects us with the unconditional love of the mother, the father, the true parents, and divine blueprint that we inherited from them that's been tampered with. And that tampering, you know, wants to keep us in a loop so that we don't begin to explore, you know, who our true parents are. It's sort of like having foster parents that don't want you to know that they're not your real parents, and they never want you to, and you believe that this is all you got. So it's natural in this time of ascension that we're going to begin to open up to those new levels, but there's always a psyop, there's always some kind of attack, there's always some sort of event that happens that just shakes us into, you know, a response that we're constantly managing, but we need to manage it from a different perspective. And a lot of people are, you know, like detectives that are like, this is an anomaly, this looks engineered, this doesn't line up, this doesn't make sense. Like architects and engineers for 9/11, or people that are looking, you know, at these fires, there's an anomaly here, that are, you know, studying geoengineering and the AI, darker technologies, and how they're being used. Not to say that we're not going to positively, you know, use it, but we are the ultimate technology, what we generate into our environment, and we can override and offset and dismantle the dark weaponry when we take it upon ourselves to own our own thoughts, to, you know, work deeply at clearing ancestral patterns, programs, by understanding that disease and adversity is helping us to find ourselves again and get closer to ourselves, to begin to unlock what's been dormant, instead of constantly have something else outside of us to solve it and manage it.
Yeah.
Not to say that there aren't helpful, benevolent people out there, but sometimes they absolutely take control over your process of gaining greater self-awareness and understanding the deeper root of it, which is what we want to see more in the mainstream, instead of pharmaceuticals and just jabs and it's just taking advantage of our vulnerability. So we have to embrace these challenges as opportunities to discover how much more that we are. And that's when they begin to lose their grip. And that's what they're most afraid of. So they're kind of in their final death throes as we're going through this shift. So they'll shake up anything they possibly can to make it as miserable as possible, or to see, but they know it's game over. Now it's like, you know, how much are they going to harass and bully to make things difficult as this transition takes place? What left can they actually throw at us when our consciousness is so above these dark technologies that, like, they're not going to be as successful as they would have been if we were just staying unconscious and easily played. The pandemic woke a lot of people up, so it's like whatever they pull out of their bag is not going to be so easy, because they've already been busted. And there's a lot of people that it hit close to home, and some, you know, they're still gonna hold on, but it's like a sinking ship. You know, where is that really going to take you? You can defend your captors, you can defend what you decided to do all you want, but there's going to be a eventual breakthrough that'll steer you in a direction where you see people thriving, where you see sound healing technology, or like therapies and all the stuff that's already here. You'll see, like, wow, I'm missing out. Like, this is where the high vibes are. Why am I over here getting more and more toxic, getting more and more entangled, and because that's falling away, it's going to fall away within people, and that's collapsing within people to then reroute. And that's where the healing centers and, hopefully med beds and ways to help people, dismantle and recover from these bioweapons and the mind control and the grief of the guilt that'll come up with, how could I have been so mistaken? I can't believe I consented to this. And my children also, like, there needs to be major counseling and a lot of compassion and love for people that were just well-intended and didn't know any better. And there'll be a lot of casualties too, because people are not ready, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's the scariest thing right now. Like, just my own little crazy story. Back in the early 2000s, I went down like a little rabbit hole, and I would say I was like kind of, I would be considered like a conspiracy theorist, right? Like by my family and friends. But I went down the rabbit hole because I had a house out east on Long Island, and I spent my summers growing up in Montauk. So I wanted to research the Montauk Project. So I went down all these rabbit holes, and I have to tell you, Laura, it literally scared the crap out of me. Like, it was such cognitive dissonance. And I came from a family where my dad was very, very much into the belief system of the galactics. And, so I'd been around this. It wasn't like something that was foreign. And he actually believed he was abducted, which is a whole other story. But I was reading about this and, the time travel and the monsters and all these things. And it literally just scared me. And I had to stop looking at it for a little while. It just was shaking my sense of safety. That's really what it was. It was like my sense of safety. And that's not, I knew there was probably, there were beings out there, but I didn't know they were right here, and I didn't know this was happening. So what happened was, I kind of put it out of my mind for a little while. And then there was a sense a few years later of just this knowing, and there was more peace to it, and there was more acceptance. And so I think a lot of the concepts and a lot of the things that we're trying to educate and share with people, it's very shocking. Everything, even when we talk about jabs and things like that, because we believed, we were told, we did things with our kids, whatever it was, with ourselves. And so, sometimes it's just a matter of being open enough to take the information in, to maybe put it aside, so you're not totally overwhelmed, and then to just lightly bring it back in so that you can sort of just metabolize all of this, because there's going to be a lot to metabolize, like you and I, it was in pieces, but now I think things are coming out a little fast and furious, and it becomes very overwhelming. And we've been so brainwashed and trained that we have to put food on the table and work. Like, how much can you think about, like that's part of the programming that we've been through, rather than to realize we are supposed to be here to help one another and to live lives and not pay to be on this planet. As Alex Collier is always famous for saying, that he was, was told to ask to him by one of his Andromedan um, uh, uh, people that he met. And that's, I think, where the compassion, like you said, has to come in from those who maybe have gone before these people like us, to not just accept, just feel like these people are going to just like, bam, tell them, right? Like, you're not going to throw a bucket of ice on someone to wake them up in the morning,
No.
but to be kind. And that's where I think the challenge is for those of us, the listeners and people who are awakened and so angry at a lot of what we know and have known, but to say, you know what? We need to have compassion and love to help those that maybe are just new to all this, and kind of get rid of that feeling of wanting to be vindicated and, we were right and we told,
No, not at all.
yeah.
And yeah, we might know some things, but they're just as right. They signed up for this. They're so new before coming in that they would participate, just like we participated. We've all participated generation after generation. Don't fear the choices that you made or what you might have allowed, we allowed negative partners in, we allowed stupid movies in, we allowed all sorts of things into our space that, upon knowing that's not really good for me, or maybe I can not consent next time around, you grow, you gain more wisdom. I mean, the laws of alchemy are real. We can turn lead into gold. You don't want to look at it like, this is right, that is wrong, this is good, this is bad. What you did was, I mean, it's like you got to make peace with it. It's not all negative. If you did it because you have good intent, then that overrides where there might be dark aspects. And it's not all black and white. It's not like it's all bad and this is all good. It's just from this point forward, you might just want to rethink it, make sure you understand the source of it. And just remember, everything is frequency. It wants to link you into like an antenna into a lot that's coming at us. And it just makes it easier to be like hooked in, because there's something about certain particles that are in those jabs, but it's also what we've been breathing in our environment. It's also been in our food. We're all impacted by it, whether you got that or not. But if if we look at everything like the enemy and like, we're just victimized by it, that's not where it's at. Look at yourself as a powerful alchemist, that once you awaken and once you have that awareness, everything begins to shift, and your physical body will catch up with the consciousness shift that you make to be, more free in your thoughts, to be more discerning, to, just like when you go through a nasty breakup, you're not going to be feeling that great. You might be processing a lot of dark emotions, and you might be struggling to find your self-worth as you forge a new pathway for yourself. So just like this, whatever has been, as you reroute, it's going to resolve, whatever it was. As you let go, as you reset the energy, your body will follow. There's Mother Earth has provided us all the medicines and the galactics, and how this Earth is like a multiverse, and it's connected to, these higher levels and higher harmonic universes and star systems. That's why we used to have advanced civilizations, and we have this advanced DNA. There's nothing that we can't overcome, heal, or cure. And just, know that. And it's not all necessarily negative. There might have been placebos, and there might have been some jabs that aren't as harmful as others. There just might have been, certain batches or certain infiltrations that, just like in our food, that got in there. Like, I don't want to scare anybody. Like, oh my God, what have I done? We could all say that about the way we raised our kids and what we thought
Absolutely.
was acceptable, that we were told to do, that we did from the goodness of our heart, that we're ourselves correcting now. So, I know a lot of people that felt like they had no choice, or they would have lost their job.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't have made sense to put your family on the line and not be able to put food on your table, and just be living out of a vehicle just because, that you refuse. Well, some people didn't have that option. So there's no right or wrong move here. It's just what can you do now that you have this information, and just know that you can heal. Just know that you can shift the frequency, work with sound healing. It's very much about frequency. I always look at even, SSP people are people that have been shot up with all sorts of things, mind controlled. We can undo all this with all sorts of techniques and ways. I talked to Stuart Spurley. He said a lot of these dark technologies are going to be turned around and used for the good, and I'm like, even 5G can beam like 432 hertz. They can spray essential oils on us instead. It's like everything's going to be okay. Let's just know that. And don't fear what you took into your body. Just know that you're going to be empowered to know what to do from this point on, because you have this extra awareness. It's going to help you. And just bless your body with the heart and the intent that you held to,
so beautifully said, and so full of love. And when it comes to the subject of ascension, and there was just a couple of more things I wanted to cover, because I know we're going to have to stop soon, but you describe it as awakening, embodying, and advancing ourselves beyond the limits of the personality matrix and inverted systems. Can you talk to that for a minute?
Yeah, well, like an inverted system, again, I always look at it like a partnership. We're in relationship with creation. There's this system, though, that we're in a dependency bond with, and it's inverted. It's digressing us. It's not helping us to awaken. It's not helping us to heal. It's definitely, we see a lot of, naturopaths and Chinese medicine practitioners, a lot of health food stores. So, we're seeing that all that's available. It's right under your nose. The difference between going to McDonald's and going to, a health food store is your choice to make. So in every moment you get to choose, the positive timeline, because you're making the choices for yourself to be a healthier person in your thoughts, in your mind, and how you take care of your physical body, in the resources that are available in the Mother Earth that provides for us. So, the inverted system is just the commercials that you see. It's just the programming. You can just switch that off at any time. You do not have to participate in that. Even though we're not completely out of the woods, though, we still have to pay bills and we still have to worry about the roof over our head. And there's still, some of it. Once you determine that, you're free from it, though, the rest of it's going to, begin to follow. So divorces are never that easy. Some are easier than others. So everybody's in a different level as far as how hooked in they are and how messy that divorce and breakup is going to be. Some have a lot, to, untangle from, maybe in their careers, their what's in the bank and what agreements they've made and how entangled they are. But, look at people that survive hurricanes and forest fires that have to start from scratch. So, we have it in us to bounce back and regenerate. That's part of the laws of creation, death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation. We die many, many times in this physical vessel. Uranus is the great wrecking ball. It tears things down and we need to rebuild. So once we do that in our own consciousness, the physical will catch up. And that is how we're cutting the cords and moving in this different direction. Because anything that's pulling us into more toxicity, more negative thought forms, more outward solutions that make us feel a little bit more out of our control, but it's up to the doctor to decide for us, begin to ask yourself, can you work with somebody who's co-creating this healing journey with you, who honors what your thoughts are, what your intuition is telling you, when you don't feel right about taking something and they're pushing it on you saying, this is what you need to do, begin to say, I want to break that relationship. I want to work with somebody, who helps me to get to know myself better, that, and there'll be more of that in our society. So you have to know your self-worth. You have to know, that you have choices in every moment to walk away from friends that don't see you for who you truly are, that make you feel less than, or you have to just fit in. Relationships that undermine you, where you feel silenced or trapped or controlled. You feel it, like in every sector of our society, which the chart shows with the 12 houses and the 12 zodiacs and now the 13th. In each sector of your life, where do you need to make change? Where do you feel confined, trapped, stuck? And begin to work on that and move beyond that. Because all the pillars of society, every house in the zodiac has been infiltrated to a certain degree with something that digresses us or vampires off of us. And some houses in areas of our life we're really shining and we're really, excelling. Maybe when we go on a trip or go to a sacred site or go to an event or, take some time for ourselves, but then we go back into this life that we might not feel in agreement with. Where can we pull ourselves out of that and begin to do what we love to do and what we're passionate about, and figure out a way to, manifest abundance and find community, that will help support that process. So you might have one foot in both worlds for a while, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Just with grace and ease in every moment, Saturn rules hair growing and grass growing. If you sit there and stare at it, nothing's like happening, but it is, so every single day that you invest in healthier choices and something that shifts you in a more positive direction, you'll see a lot of progress that has been made that you don't want to just feel like is not being made just because it's not happening overnight. Be just gentle and patient with you. We're all going to get there. Let's all support one another, hold each other's hands, do the best we can to step it up and our love and support for one another. And we'll see that the universe really has our back, that the miracles, magic, and synchronicities are there when we answer to our soul, instead of this reward punishment system that really doesn't have any true security or stability. It gives us a false sense of stability and security that you're going to find even greater security and stability within yourself when you take that leap, but move at a pace that is comfortable enough. And the thing is, if you don't and you stagnate, usually events will transpire to help redirect you, that you might confuse as being a misfortune, but trust it's an upgrade. Like, trust the events that happen in your life and try and find a perspective that's empowering for you so that you notice the synchronicities that support your growth versus the things that reinforce the fear, the panic, and the misfortune that you might project upon it.
Yeah, I love the analogy that you gave about divorce. As a coach who helps people get through a divorce myself, one of the things is like when you said the foot in one world and in another, and it's, if you think of it like a divorce, you're moving from one way of living to another, and most of that, there's going to be a lot of physical changes, right? Maybe where you live, maybe who you're living with or not living with, maybe the way you're paying your bills, etc. But emotionally, you're also, and what I try to work with people to understand is that part of the battle that you're getting through with any divorce or separation is learning to rely and trust yourself more than anything, and to be patient with yourself and not be in that, like you said, the feelings of lack or the vibration of fear. And with looking at it more empowered, which I think is the same, analogy to be drawn with this whole idea of ascension and awakening, and, just in general, right? That affects our whole lives, not just a specific event like divorce or separation, but that you said it so beautifully that, we have to be patient and kind and take things, according to how we're being led to go, and just to be open to what is around, because everything usually presents itself. It's just whether or not our eyes are open enough to see it and then embrace it in some way.
Yeah.
This has been
Right.
I'm so happy to have had you here today, Laura. And I want you to tell everyone, how can they get in touch with you or follow you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Okay, so cosmicguide.org is my website. You can find my Telegram channel, my Instagram, my Facebook, and my YouTube that I'm trying to rebuild, that I don't really post on very often, but definitely, sign up for that. I have a subscription and I do sessions for people. I do astrology, and yeah, to really look at, what aspect of your life are you looking to make the most change in, and what planets are supporting that? And if they're not supporting it, it doesn't mean that you can't work on that. You might just be working on it in a different area that then resolves another area. Like when we make a change in our career, it's going to make a change in how much room we have to play and be creative and have fun, right? So, it's like we experience all of it, but there's certain areas that life events and times of our life where we're really being drawn to focus on certain areas for doing, real work. So we don't want to distract ourselves. The more we get to know ourselves, the better off we are. And we don't want to be on autopilot anymore. And understand that this is a time of awakening to just the beauty of all that we are and what we're capable of doing. There's part of the awakening to the madness of what's going on and the control systems and this and that. But the ultimate awakening is, what they've tried to suppress and keep you from, that is beginning to blossom. And so I work to help people, just really see that and own it, so that you're not just in a fog of confusion all the time. And also, sometimes it's really important to just surrender. And like you said, trust. So we're all going to get there no matter what. And let's continue to just stay united and be on this beautiful, healing journey. Turn your wounds into wisdom and pain into purpose. And you'll see that it wasn't all just to torment you. It's like you're going to find yourself in your truth and why you came through these adversities, just like you teach about and talk about. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you so much for being here today. Till next time, wishing you a high vibe day, and to just stay in those energies of love, abundance, and joy, and everything will start to manifest the way you want it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome to CarminesGold.com. Don't waste not even a second looking. Cheaper prices just don't exist. How important is it for you to own gold and silver right now? What does it mean to me personally? There's an economy that's about to crash beyond what words can explain. In 5 words, I'm going to educate you on gold and silver. Are you ready? You need to own some. Simple. Time is of the essence as the walls are closing in. This crash is visibly in motion right now. Don't kid yourself. The only way to preserve wealth is to become your own central bank. Just by owning gold and silver, the banks that are going into survival mode are currently stacking gold and silver like it's going out of style. You have the same opportunity instead of keeping your money in paper, which is worthless. Again, this is not financial advice. Going into survival mode is everything. Preserving your wealth and positioning your family to thrive in the near future is paramount. The time to take action is beyond crucial. God's money cannot be faked. It's got intrinsic value. It's got plenty of usability. And because the crypto game can be extremely complicated for most, this becomes the only way to preserve your wealth in the current times we live in. The price manipulation that has occurred over the last 150 years is about to come to a full stop as we move into an extremely different world. And the true value of gold and silver is going to shine like never before. The people who vividly see what's happening have moved into panic buying right now. The people who get it, who are positioned for wealth preservation, who are accumulating every week, every month, stand to change their course of history for 100 generations to come. Buying gold and silver from carminesgold.com at unbeatable prices is the best decision you'll ever make. I'm going to end by saying this. This is my opinion and not financial advice. This crash is knocking on the door, and it's clear. It's here. We can fill any size order, $500, $500,000, and yes, even $10 million. Your best option to preserve wealth, if you don't understand cryptocurrency, is gold and silver. Do it now.